Continue our breaking news coverage about the sentencing of Vance Boelter. We have new details just into the newsroom a few minutes ago. We now know he'll face 2 life sentences plus 40 years. The Bureau of Prisons will decide where he'll serve it after Boelter requested to be moved to a facility down in Florida.
Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy Friday. So a Minnesota man who carried out one of the most shocking politically motivated attacks in recent U.S. history has now learned his fate. Vance Boelter has been sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. What is he, a cat or something? I don't know. Plus an additional 40 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to assassinating Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark Hortman in attempting to murder State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. And you wouldn't believe who he said made him do it. Tim Walz. But they said, oh, he is just crazy. And maybe he is. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Nellie Miranda. As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, so according to prosecutors, Vance Boelter spent months planning the attacks. He disguised himself as a police officer, drove a vehicle made to resemble a law enforcement SUV, and then he went to the lawmakers' homes during the early morning hours. Melissa Hortman and her husband were killed, and Senator Hoffman and his wife survived, despite suffering multiple gunshot wounds.
Today, Boelter admitted to stalking Hortman and Hoffman for months and carrying out the murders. The recommended sentence for this case is 2 consecutive life sentences plus 40 years in prison. Boelter changing his plea just days after the federal government revealed it would not seek the death penalty.
Federal prosecutors described the crimes as deliberate acts of political violence. It is clear as day that these were deliberate, planned attacks. As part of his plea agreement, Boelter admitted guilt and avoided a potential death penalty trial. During sentencing, family members delivered emotional victim impact statements describing the lasting trauma caused by the attacks.
That sentence was exactly what was agreed upon in the weeks leading up to today. Now, Gordon was in the main room while it was happening. You were there about an hour before the proceedings started. Tell me a little bit about what the mood was like in the room.
Well, everyone was kind of preparing for this, and it was, a lot of conversations. There was close to 200 people in the room, but the moment that Senator John Hoffman walked into the room, all the conversations stopped, immediately went quiet, and that was kind of the tone for the next, 2 hours as we listened to 14 people share their victim impact statements, and we heard from several members of Mark and Melissa Hortman's family. We heard from their parents, we heard from their children, just some devastating stories about how this still affects them every single day. It was, hard to listen to for 2 hours just to hear how much pain was caused by these attacks.
Some relatives says that they were disappointed that the plea agreement prevented the possibility of a death sentence, while others focused on finally bringing an end to the lengthy legal process. Boelter himself offered a brief apology in court, and apparently it was so short and they moved from it so quickly that it probably didn't even register as an apology.
And we know that, Vance Boelter had to listen to all of that as well for that same period of time. And he made a short statement after all of it was said and done. Tell me a little bit about how folks in the courtroom reacted to that statement.
Yeah, his statement, which I took, was just, all he said was, "To every person I have caused loss, pain, heartache, confusion, sadness, shame, or loneliness, I'm truly sorry." Word for word, I think it's 18 words. That's all he said. He immediately tried to turn around to walk back to sit down, and the judge says kind of like, "Hold on, we have more to talk about." And they went right into the next part of the proceeding, so I don't think a lot of people really had a moment to react to how short his statement was. But right after it was over, you could hear people just breathing a sigh of relief.
This case is a tragedy, but one thing myself and others cannot seem to get past is Boelter's alleged connection to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Maybe he is crazy. Maybe he is insane. Maybe he was trying to mislead the investigation. But it is still worth taking a mental note of it.
Now, a newly unsealed search warrant reveals Boelter left behind a notebook. One of the passages reads, "If you want to save the country, you have to get your hands dirty." And a handwritten confession letter for FBI Director Kash Patel, claiming Governor Tim Walz ordered him to kill Minnesota's senators.
While the investigation remains ongoing, I'm confident that Vance Boelter acted alone.
The letter also claims Boelter was trained by the U.S. military and carried out operations overseas. Acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson believes this is nothing more than a fantasy.
Here's what is actually known. Boelter previously served on a state workforce development board whose members were appointed by Minnesota governors. He was originally appointed under one governor and then later reappointed during Tim Walz's administration. Public records show he was one of the many people serving on that advisory board. That appointment led some people online to suggest that there was a much closer relationship between Boelter and Governor Tim Walz. However, investigators did not present any evidence that Walz directed, encouraged, or even participated in the crimes. And again, let's not forget that investigators said that it was all a fantasy in Boelter's head. And maybe it is, but no doubt about it, Tim Walz is a shady, interesting character. So even though the federal case has now resulted in life sentences, Boelter's legal troubles are not completely over, because he still faces separate state charges in Minnesota, meaning that additional legal proceedings are expected in the months to come. One thing everyone can agree on, regardless of party affiliation, is that political violence is never the answer, and this case serves as a reminder that disagreements over politics should never escalate into violence. It is not worth it. But what are your thoughts? Do you think the federal sentence was appropriate, or should prosecutors have pursued the death penalty instead? I said the death penalty because he doesn't have 9 lives, and a lot of taxpayer dollars are going to be wasted keeping him alive. But you let me know your thoughts in the comments. But while we are here, I'm sure we all have come to know WNBA player Sophie Cunningham. She has been catching a lot of heat for simply saying that biological males should not play in women's sports because it is a big old duh, and I am annoyed at the thought of having this conversation in 2026 and beyond. But here's what she said. Take a listen.
ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Do you think, I guess, along the line like that, it goes against perhaps, some people might say, hey, for the trans community, this could be something that could come back on us or be targeted against us? Like, how do you, I guess, view that sort of critique?
You know, like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community.
If we do not protect women's sports, there will be no women's sports, because all the loser males who couldn't compete with their gender would just throw lipstick on and take over female sports. It's quite disturbing. Even White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt spoke about the absurdity of the backlash Sophie is receiving, especially since more than 80% of the population, both left and right, agree that biological males should not be playing in women's sports.
It's even more ludicrous that you do have Sophia Cunningham, a female athlete herself, very accomplished in her own right, coming forth and speaking that truth that men shouldn't play in women's sports. We want to protect women and girls, and the backlash she is receiving from Democrats and left-wing figures across the country is astonishing. They are clearly very out of touch with the American public on this issue, which again is an 80-20 issue. It's common sense. It's rooted in basic biological fact that men should not be competing against women on playing fields across the country.
If we can all get back to common sense, we could better focus our attention on important matters like the economy, the SAVE Act, fraud, etc. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you got any value from today's video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. And ring the bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.